Whispers from Below, a horror podcast by Justin W. Geis. Scary stories, both real and fake. Hello, listeners. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 11 of Whispers from Below, a podcast by a madman for madmen. I'm your resident psychopath, Justin W. Geis, and today's topic of discussion is Death Note. Now, before I get into the episode, I have a couple things I want to talk about. First of all, I just finished doing a brand new website for Whispers from Below. It's just whispersfrombelow.com. Please go check it out. I'm probably going to talk about it again at the end in more detail, but I wanted to throw that out there real quick. It's the easiest way to stay up to date with everything that's happening with me. That or the Instagram, easiest way to get a hold of me. Another thing is that this episode is going to be okay for every listener to listen to. I'm not super worried about it. What I will say, though, is that if you are a younger listener listening to this podcast, I would recommend being a little bit careful and do a little bit more research before you watch the show itself. The show talks a lot more about darker topics than I'm going to today, and it's a little bit more spooky-ooky than what I'm going to talk about today. So just keep that in mind if you do choose to watch the anime after I talk about it. Just know that it is a little bit more adult that I'm going to be talking about right this second. So let's talk about it. Much like the other episode that I did in season 1, where I talked about Dead Man Wonderland, which is one of my all-time favorite animes. I'm sort of going to do the same thing with Death Note. I'm not really going to talk about the plot. That's not the goal of this episode, not to give you, a shot-by-shot remake of the show. I do that with movies and horror movies because I think they're a little bit more fun and they have a bit more like comedic value when you do it that way. With anime, especially ones that I really love and care about, I want you, the viewer, to listen to this podcast and get excited about it and then go watch it. And so I don't want to give away too much. And I'll talk about it a little bit later, but Death Note is, I would say, like a very interesting anime. It keeps you guessing the whole time, but at the same time, it's not a very exciting anime. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But a little bit of background on it. It is a manga. Sorry. Oh my God, I hate myself. A manga/anime series that was written by Sugumi Oba and illustrated by Takeshi Obata. The manga was first serialized in December 2003, and it had 108 chapters, which then got turned into 12 like full-sized manga. And it has 37 episodes in the anime. The anime series aired in Japan in October of 2006. And it's had a bunch of other stuff sort of happen after the anime itself. The manga was, I think, relatively popular in Japan and Korea, like sort of in like Eastern Asian sort of culture. But it didn't really pick up speed anywhere else until the anime aired. And then once the anime aired, Death Note sort of became a really popular thing. So Konami ended up making a video game for the DS that was for that. There are a bunch of films that have been made, including like a 2017 Netflix exclusive movie, which I personally don't like. I think it's really bad. Watch the series before you watch the movie. Don't watch the movie and then expect that that's what the series is like, because the series is 8 million times better than the fucking Netflix movie. Like Netflix, you can stay out of some things. You don't have to jump on the ship for everything. Like really, it's okay. They supposedly have a sequel in the works. I don't know when the last time we got an update about that was. I hope it was a while ago because I don't really want a sequel to it. It would be like making a sequel to the Percy Jackson movie. Like, we don't need that, and nobody asked for it / wanted it. So don't do it, please. We don't want it. We don't need it. There's this, when I was researching this, I really had to fact check this because this is ridiculous. But there's even a musical version that ran in Japan and South Korea for like literally the shortest period of time possible. But it was composed by Frank Wildhorn. And for those of you that are not in musical theater, I'll explain sort of who he is. But for those of you that are in musical theater and you know who he is, I laughed so hard when I read this. But he composed like Bonnie and Clyde, Wonderland, Dracula. Like he's like a pretty famous composer. Like people know who he is. And for him to make a musical about Death Note, like just really cracks me up. The musical ran in Japan from April 6th to April 29th. So it really only ran for like 2 weeks in 2015. And then it ran in South Korea from June 11th to August 11th, 2015. And in both versions, I believe it was in Korean when they did it in Korea, and it was in Japanese when they did it in Japan. As of 2017, there is no word of getting an English version of the musical. I would not hold your breath on the idea of getting an English speaking version of it. I really just don't think that that's gonna be in the cards, and I think we're all better for it. I really don't think we need it. But I just thought that fact was like really, really, really hilarious. Like I love the fact that Frank Wildhorn was like, yeah, whatever. Like I feel like he'll just do anything, and I love that. He's like, yeah, whatever, I'll do it. It's fine. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of the plot of the anime, and I'm saying this right now. I'm purposefully avoiding as many spoilers as possible while still giving you a general idea of what the show is. So I am going to be giving some minor spoilers. So if you want full, full new senses when you go into the anime, I'll give you right now. It is an anime that involves a lot less action sequences than you're used to in an anime, and more of like a psychological thriller sort of anime, which is something that you don't see a lot. It's more about suspense. It's more about keeping you on your toes. And it has a lot to do with moral values and like what is right, what is wrong. Kind of like if any of you have seen Dexter, that TV show, not the laboratory, not the scientist, but Dexter, I forgot who the actor is that plays Dexter, but he's like a serial killer who kills serial killers. And so like there's this big like moral dilemma of like, is he doing the right thing? He's killing people that are bad, but like, does that make him any better because he's killing? It's like that. So now that those people, so if you are one of the people that wants to go into the anime fresh, turn off this episode right now. Now that they're gone, let's talk about the plot. So it starts out where we meet a young man named Light Yagami. Light Yagami. I haven't watched this show in like years. I'm so sorry. He is like a young teenage boy, like high school age, who is like a genius. And he's clearly very bored with his life because he's incredibly intelligent. He ends up stumbling upon the Death Note, which is this all-black notebook that belongs to Shinigami Ryuk. Shinigami basically means like demon or like devil, mostly like demon. So basically like he stumbles upon this notebook that's from a demon. He opens up the notebook and there are instructions inside of it. The instructions read as follows. It says, the human whose name is written in this notebook shall die. The human whose name is written in this note shall die. This note will not take effect unless the writer has the person's face in mind when writing his or her name. Therefore, people sharing the same name will not be affected. If the cause of death is written within 40 seconds of writing the person's name, it will happen. If the cause of death is not specified, the person will simply die of a heart attack. After writing the cause of death, details of the death should be written in the next 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So he gets this notebook, and obviously, like, he's an intelligent guy. He's not an idiot. And so he's like, this can't be real. This is absurd, but I'm going to take it because I'm interested as to what sort of culture or cult believes in it. Like, I'm really curious. So he takes it home with him. And on the news, he sees like some criminal is holding hostages. And so he writes the name in the notebook. And he pictures the guy's like mugshot. And then he dies. And so Light sort of figures out that this notebook is real. And whoever's name he writes down, as long as he pictures their face, they're dead. Now, the thing about this is that he has to know their full name. It can't just be a first name. It has to be like a full name, which sort of comes into play later. He'll meet certain people that he's like, I need to take them out, but he doesn't know their name. And so he has to learn who they are before he can kill them, which is kind of like an interesting little tidbit to throw in there. So he decides that he's going to start murdering people that he deems are like morally in the wrong. People that have no morals or do not share the same morals as him need to die, so that he can sort of create this like utopian society where there is no crime. There is no need for crime. So he starts murdering off, like he'll sit and watch the news and he'll see like, you know, such and such criminal has gotten away yet again. And then he writes their name in the book. There's a scene where he sees this woman getting like harassed and like basically raped. And he like writes the guy's name in the book because he overhears them talking about it. And then like the guy gets hit by like a truck. So he starts using it as his sort of like Batman vigilante way of like cleansing the world. But what's important to note is that he's not specifically just murdering people in Japan. He's murdering people all over the world that he sees on the news. But there is a lot of stuff happening in Japan, which, again, I don't want to give away any spoilers, but like they do figure out that whoever is this killer, they being the police, they figure out that he's based in Japan. Through a very like weird turnabout sort of way. I don't know about you, but I personally hate having to go to the grocery store. It takes up so much of my day when I could be starting a new hobby with that time, like soap carving, or collecting the sick bags out of airplanes. With Instacart, it makes grocery shopping fast and easy, all while allowing me to stay in my underwear. Instacart allows you to order all of the things you usually get from your local stores, delivered to your door in as fast as 1 hour. Not only that, but it will also give you smart suggestions for new items based off of your preferences, as well as highlight deals to help you save some money. The shoppers handpick perfect produce and make sure that your eggs get to you safely. You can get free delivery on your first order over $35 by following the link in the show notes. This also lets Instacart know that we sent you, and it helps support Whispers from Below. So if you hate grocery shopping as much as I do, try Instacart today and enjoy getting your groceries the easy way. So the police, as I kind of started to mention before, they create this elite task force that is made to stop him. Him being this, I guess, like, serial killer is probably the right way to put it, yeah. But sort of like this, like, Zorro-esque, Batman-esque character, Dexter-esque. I love just, I guess, using the word esque today. But sort of this like vigilante who is dubbed Kita, which roughly translates to killer in English. And people start like almost like worshiping him, sort of making him this like god. Cults start to pop up. People start to like talk about him on the street. For those of you that have seen, the best way to sort of like give you a mental image of what it looks like at the start is like, for those of you that have seen Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, that came out recently, you know, sort of at the end of the movie, spoilers for that movie or whatever, but how people are all wearing the clown masks. It's sort of like that. So they're all like creating this like love-hate relationship with Kita, even though like they don't know who he is. Nobody knows who he is. So the police create this task force to stop him, and it's led by L, just the letter L. He is a highly esteemed international consulting detective. His past is something that like you never really know or figure out. You get like glimpses into it, but you don't really know a whole lot about him. And including like, just so we're clear, like nobody knows a lot about him, but like including the police, like nobody knows who he is. But he is arguably one of the best criminal profilers in the world. And so they're like, we need you to figure out who this man is because he's killing people and we can't even figure out how he's doing it. So L is extremely enigmatic and strange, but he is also highly intelligent. So then basically the plot of Death Note is this fight between the police and Light. And sort of this sort of dichotomy is, I think, the wrong word here, but this sort of battle between like what is considered good or bad or right or wrong, because the world is not black and white. There is so much gray that is in between, and it's hard, especially when you're a high schooler, to sort of see the gray that's happening everywhere. And so I think it's interesting to note his age is very important to the plot, because I would imagine that someone in their 30s would have a little bit more of a view, even late 20s would have a little bit more of a view of the world of like, well, there isn't black and white, but, there is right and wrong, but then also there isn't right and wrong. And then how do you define right and wrong? It's different how I define right and wrong. Like, it talks a lot about that. And it sort of plays off of like, well, who do you root for? Because the show sets you up to root for light. It literally sets you up so that the police are the bad guys and Elle is sort of the villain, but they're just trying to stop someone from killing people. And you're rooting for Light, who is not necessarily the best character in the world. He has a lot of flaws, and also he has this flawed belief of what society should be. Like, it's really, really good, and it's really fascinating, and I am going to throw in, like, a couple little spoilers at the end here. There's a second Death Note that shows up. Throughout the plot, you find out more about the demons and how their society works. There's a point when Light ends up trying to, like, act like he's innocent to the point where he ends up hunting himself and trying to throw himself off the trail of catching himself. Like, it's crazy and it's wild, and it really is one of my favorite animes. But what I will say, because then people are going to be like, well, like, you said you haven't watched it in years, how could it be one of your favorite animes? It's weird to rewatch. It's one of those animes that you watch once, and then once you sort of know the twists and turns and what's going to happen, most of what makes the show so fascinating and so interesting to watch is the suspense that comes with it. The sort of like, I literally have no idea what's going to happen next, because clearly this show shows no remorse and will do anything it takes to surprise me. And so once you sort of know the surprises and you know what's coming, it definitely is a little less suspenseful. The sort of pacing feels a lot different when you know what's going to happen. When you've never seen it before, the pacing of the show, in my opinion, seems very perfect, because it's not a fast-paced show. It's a relatively slow show, and it takes a little bit to sort of get off the ground. But once it gets off the ground, there is absolutely no way you can stop watching it. It's like you have to keep watching the next episode. Like, I remember binging like 8 episodes, and they're like an hour long. But there was like one day where I stayed up till like 7 a.m. because I just wanted to keep watching Death Note. It's just one of those shows to me that I highly recommend to people, but also at the same time, it's not one that like I derive a ton of pleasure from rewatching, which is unfortunate, because I really do. I'm one of those people where like I'll watch a show and I'll love it, and then I will continue to rewatch it. I'm really weird like that, and like once I find a TV show, like, and it doesn't even mean anime, like just TV or movies in general that I really, really love, I will continuously rewatch them, because I love learning like every little nuance in it. I love being able to quote it. I love being able to know what line is coming next, like learning the script. Like, I'm creepy like that, and I love that sort of stuff. But Death Note has just never been that way for me. It's hard to watch again. It feels very slow when you know the twists and turns that are coming, if that sort of makes any sense. A fun little note that I read, and I didn't do too much research into if it's still this way or if that has changed, or, sort of the timeline of when this happened. But Death Note is one of the banned anime/mangas in China, because apparently students kept making fake Death Notes and writing names of like their classmates and teachers in the Death Note. Which, I know that's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Like, can you imagine being in like, Miss Richardson's class, and you're like, fuck this bitch. And so you like write her name in a book, and you're like, she's gonna die. Like, that kid has so many other issues that need to be addressed. It's not Death Note's fault. It's that child's fault, and that child needs help. That's a cry for help. But apparently it's banned in China because of this that kept happening, which I just think is like kind of funny and like interesting that and it tried to, I think maybe in Oklahoma or some state that's a little bit more conservative, tried to ban Death Note as well, and it was unanimously voted down. People were like, "What do you mean? Why does this need to be banned? Like, it's fine. We let our kids play Halo and Call of Duty. Like, this is really chill in comparison." I just think it's interesting the differences in cultures and how that can sort of play a role in like what media is considered acceptable and what media is considered not acceptable. Stuff like that is always interesting to me. And it plays into literally the whole point of the plot, which is like, what is right and wrong? There is none. There's a gray area. Nothing is technically completely right or completely wrong. We can objectively say that killing someone is wrong, right? If we, strip away everything else, no scenarios, killing someone is wrong. However, if you killed that person because they attacked you first, suddenly you were in the right because you were in self-defense. If you kill that person because they kidnapped you, all of a sudden you are in the right and they are in the wrong. If you kill someone just because you want to, that's considered wrong. So there's this weird, like, what constitutes a right or wrong murder? Is he technically in the right for killing people that are awful criminals? They're, serial rapists, they're murderers, they're robbers, they're bad people. Objectively, we can say that these are bad people. But then you run into the moral question of, does that mean that they should die? Do they deserve to die? Because does anybody deserve to die? And what right do you have as a high school student to decide who gets to live or die? It's really fascinating. I will say I watched it when I started watching it when I was younger, maybe like 15, and I wasn't quite in a place where I could understand the higher concepts that were being thrown at me. And I started watching it and got through like a couple episodes and was like, it's okay, but like I want to watch Sword Art Online, or like I want to watch Full Metal Alchemist, where there's more like fight scenes and stuff. And Full Metal Alchemist I do want to talk about on a future episode because that shit is dark as hell and just so depressing. Or like Black Butler, one of my all-time favorite animes is Black Butler, which is also kind of like a dark, but there's more like fight scenes, there's more like intrigue in it. And this just like didn't catch my eye. And then I tried to watch it again when I was like 17, 18 in that area. And all of a sudden I was like, this shit is so good. So like I will say, like, for younger listeners that listened through this whole episode and you're like, should I go watch this? Should I not? I would say wait till you're older. I don't think that it's going to be something that interests you quite yet. But once you are sort of around an age where you enjoy having philosophical concepts with people, like philosophical conversations about those concepts with people, that's where my brain went. It just jumped ahead too much. This is the anime for you. It again takes a little bit to get off the ground. Watch the first couple episodes and be prepared that it's not going to be super fast paced. But it does take off, and once it gets you in the grips of things, you're not going to be able to stop. It is one of my favorite animes for the simple sense of it really takes like what it uses a lot of anime tropes, in the sense of like there are scenes that I'm like, oh my god, that's so anime. Like they make him eating a potato chip into this whole like intense monologue about like him eating a potato chip. But like we don't need that. And like in American media, you don't get that because it's ridiculous. But they really play into that while also sort of diverting you from what an anime could be, because it is more about like suspense. And I feel like the animes that we see nowadays that are super popular in the States, Naruto, One Piece, even Fairy Tail, which I don't know a whole lot about, so correct me if I'm wrong about this. But those animes are sort of based on action sequences. Dragon Ball Z, they're sort of based on like fight sequences, and then there's plot and story in between that leads to the next fight sequence or the next battle. That is not at all what Death Note is. It is the in-between moments between each murder that make it so fascinating and so interesting to watch. It's not about the murders, but it is, but it's not. The murders are more of a catalyst for the actual mental mind games that are happening. And the murders almost become like a side note in the plot as other things start happening, which is very interesting because you would think that would be the whole point of the story, but it's almost like not. It's almost a tertiary plot point that he's murdering people because there's so much other questioning happening. There's so much more plot happening outside of just writing names in a book. It's fascinating. Please go check it out. I love it very, very much. And that's pretty much all I have to talk about the anime today. Sorry, I sort of rambled at the end there. I just really like it, and I'm clearly very passionate about stuff like this. So if you would like to hear more episodes about animes, or if you have any ideas of animes that you want me to watch before I talk about, let me know. You can reach me through the website, whispersfrombelow.com. There is a contact page, and you can send me little like, hey, future idea for an episode, or hey, I really like when you talked about blank. What about this? Even just little comments of like, hey, you're doing a good job, or hey, I didn't really like how blank episode was formatted. Try it a different way. I'm down for, criticism and stuff. I really trust the group of people that I currently have watching. If you want to reach me in a different way than going to the website, you can DM me on Instagram. It's at Whispers From Below. No spaces, no underscores, no capitals, no nothing. And that's the easiest way if you want to follow that to sort of keep up to date on things that are happening. I will try to get some like email blasts together for new episodes and new merch and stuff like that for the website. The website is really, really cool. I worked really, really hard on it, and I don't necessarily love designing websites and things like that. And so it did take me a lot of time because I had to take breaks where I would get super frustrated, or I would get upset like, I shouldn't make this website anyway. Like, nobody's going to click on it. Nobody cares. It's just a podcast. But then I care so much about this, and I want this to grow, and I want it to be professional. So I had to sit down and just bang out the website. I think it looks really great, and you can sign up to be a member there. So when I say email blasts, if you sign up to be a member on the website, I'm going to try to set up this sort of like email blast of like new episode out this week, or like new merch on the website, or updates on, blank thing that's happening. If you become a member on the website, I'll make sure that you get like the most up-to-date info possible through the website, which is kind of a cool thing that I can do now. Also, by signing up to be a member, you kind of support me and let me know that I'm doing good. So it would be great if you guys could do that. If not, you can follow the Instagram. That's another way. I'm really good about posting on there, or I have been recently about posting on there about new things happening on the website, new episodes coming out, just info in general about the podcast and what's happening there. For those of you that listened to last week's episode, yes, this episode is going up on Monday. I really am not in a lot of pain from surgery, which is like super duper dope. It's not like when I got my nose done, which is what I remember / expected. I've had this surgery before. I just had to get it on the other ankle. So episodes will be going up regularly scheduled. There will be 15 episodes in each season. Since I know last season was kind of a weird, I was just going to keep going in quarantine and not going to stop. And then I got burnt out, and then I had some personal stuff that happened. So each season will have 15 is the goal. So there are a couple more in this season, and then I'll take a couple weeks off and then come back with season 3. But thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Please follow on social media, share this with your friends. Even if it's just by word of mouth. My mom texted me the other day and was like, I saw someone in the store that had Tim Burton stuff on, and so I talked to them about the podcast. And I was like, thanks. Like, I love that that's the community of people that I'm gathering, is like the people that sort of are a little bit off, or like wear what they love on their sleeve, like stuff like that. I really love those types of people. So if you could just share this with one friend, even just by word of mouth, just saying, hey, there's this podcast I listen to. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. Even if they don't, the fact that you made the effort is really important to me. If you would like to share it on social media, I would absolutely love that forever and ever and ever. The last thing I wanted to say is that the merch on the website is completely brand new, and I spent a lot of time designing a lot of it, and making sure I even ordered a couple of the stuff to my own place. I'm using a new sort of like third party that's making the stuff. So I ordered some stuff to my place just to see how it looked. And I ordered like stickers, and there's a fanny pack and a t-shirt, and they're all great. They're all amazing. And I'm really, really happy with them and how the designs came out. And yeah, so just go check it out. I'm really proud of the website, and specifically the merch page, I think turned out really, really well. So yeah. Remember, Death Note is an amazing anime, but it's not super action oriented, but like that's okay. And wash your hands, and please stay safe. We're still in a pandemic. It's not over.